Welcome to Money Market at Bank of Tampa podcast. We highlight the businesses, expert business advice, the local economy, and points of interest in the Tampa Bay market. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And please share this episode with a friend or colleague. I am your host, Owen Lefebvre, the Pinellas County Market President for the Bank of Tampa, Tampa Bay's oldest and largest community bank. Today, we are joined by a very special guest, Silvia, the Tampa Bay President of Lee & Associates, a commercial real estate service firm. So about a year ago, you made a move from JLL to Lee & Associates. It was a big move. Tell us about it. What motivated you?
So, they've been talking to me for about 5 years, to be frank.
So a long courting process.
Right. It was a long courting. No surprise that it's thundering very loudly outside.
I need to tell everybody right now. So we're in the middle of a thunderstorm.
Yes.
And Julia's had a day. So
I've had a day in the rain.
She was out in the rain showing property. And so had to walk down 16 flights of stairs without an elevator. So
yes.
She thinks she's not at her best. We all think you look great.
Well, thank you very much. An industrial broker's life is a little different than an office broker when we're showing hot warehouse space in the middle of summer. Coupled with rain, not a fun situation. 1980s style banana clip in the head right now, but that's okay. So going back to your question, they were talking to me about 5 years ago before I went from Cushman to JLL. And frankly, I just didn't think I had the entrepreneurial backbone to do something like this.
Really? Okay, that's surprising.
Yes. Well, I'm a really good broker and I love what I do. I love my craft, but to run an office and to be responsible for the P&L, to scale a practice was something I just didn't think I had it in me. And everyone kept saying, it's your time, it's your time.
That is so surprising because you come across as someone that's very confident. I know you're a great broker and it's a different skill set.
Right.
However, you exude a sense of confidence. So what do you think was holding you back?
Personally, I was groomed by some of the best in the world, some of the best leaders in the world in this business, some of the best companies in the world.
Mike Davis, Cushman.
Cushman & Wakefield, Jeff Schwartz, who actually became the global CEO for Prologis.
Yes, and that's what you started your career with Prologis?
I just started my career with Prologis. And so I've just been around the best and so grateful for all of them. But I know how to be a really good broker. Running a business is a completely different skill set. And I just didn't have to, right? I ran my business within a global platform. So as a broker, you do run your business inside of a global network, if you will. But to actually be responsible for an office, bringing people on, hiring them, they're putting their trust in you, scaling the business, it was a little daunting to me. But I really trusted the process. And once I really understood the model, it just made sense. Actually, one of my employees now was with me at JLL. She had been with me at Cushman. She left JLL first and said, it's your time. I'm leaving first. You need to go do this.
Wow.
You need to do it for the rest of us. Yeah, she's super motivated me. I had a couple clients say the same thing. So
they pushed you. They willed you over the edge.
They did. And the more I really understood the process, the more intriguing it was to me. So they do an equity raise to open up an office.
Okay.
And so it's very Shark Tanky. You got to go through their board. But before you do any of that, you have to put together a 5-year business plan, identifying the competitive set of the brokerage community, and how you're going to scale the business, recruiting, everything's involved in this 5-year plan. Once the board approves, you go before the presidents. I intentionally put 4 women on that stage when we pitched to all the presidents, and these were 3 other women that really helped me launch this office. It was the first time in their history that 4 women were on that stage pitching the business, and it was absolutely amazing. So a lot of the presidents around the country then become our shareholders because the equity raise allows for...
I was going to ask, where does that come from?
Yeah, so it's internal.
You didn't have to go out and raise the equity. So
absolutely not. No, it's all internal.
They bought into your plan and
Correct.
your team.
Correct.
And made the investment.
Right. And the great thing about that is that I now get to reciprocate that. So when other offices are opening, myself as the principal and any of my principals that join or they get, there's an elevation to the principal level, you can invest in other offices. And what that really creates is a very collegial spirit within the company that's not as competitive as my other predecessor companies, where you're kind of eating what you kill and you're kind of competing internally.
So is that part of the secret sauce? Because I will tell you, I think, so when I talk about the Bank of Tampa, and I'm trying not to make this a commercial for the Bank of Tampa.
Right.
However, all of us are shareholders. We have a very attractive and very generous ESOP plan. You talk to any banker, we sound like we're playing from the same playbook, right? We're a relationship-oriented bank.
Right.
We're customized solutions, but it's the delivery and the execution. And I think the difference is we're all owners.
Right. It does make a big difference. I mean, you have a stake in the game. I think about things differently. We just recruited one of the top brokers in the marketplace, and we have gone from like 1 to 1,000 in 2 weeks. She has a tremendous amount of energy, a big book of business, and she and I were partners at Cushman & Wakefield. So this practice
Jessica
that she,
Mizrahi
Jessica
about,
Mizrahi, the practice that she had, I worked with her on, but she was an amazing leader of that practice. She kept the business, and now much of it is coming over now. And the clients are excited to see us together. But this is her business to bring over. Like, you're not competing with anybody. You are an owner of this office. And she's coming in as a principal. So the mindset is totally different. And now in the future, we can invest in other offices too.
So
super exciting.
You built a team from scratch, talking about your entrepreneurship. How was your approach to building the team? I mean, take me through that process.
So you can do it one of two ways. And in some of the other markets, people have come over with an entire team. You'll have a group of 8 have a massive exodus in a market, and they create the new Lee office. I think what's interesting about Lee, too, is that they didn't just put a flag in the ground. They did talk to other people, but they really, not to brag about myself, but they really wanted to pick.
You can brag about yourself.
I can, I will.
Yeah.
I will. Tap me on the
Do it.
shoulder. There's the thunder again. I don't know what's happening.
As you're bragging about yourself.
Yes. I'll let that happen for me. I think what they really wanted was somebody who would create a following. And I think what I'd like to do is to do it organically. I'm gonna do it generationally diverse. I want an ethnically diverse group, and I want killers. I want people who want to come over and make money, but I don't want, not that I don't like to make money, I do love to make money, but I don't want to be greedy about it. There's enough to make that we can generously create wealth for ourselves and our future leaders. I really want to, with my partners, craft the next generation of leaders. And we want to do it very differently. If you see us online, what we're doing, the way we market, we're doing it very differently.
Well, it looks like you're having fun.
Yes.
So I will start there. But in terms of outside of using your words, being a killer and wanting to make money, I mean, what are some of the other characteristics you look for? And then maybe more importantly, if someone walks in the door and you have a conversation with them, what's a deal killer? That like you can't be a part of this.
I will tell you that there's been a couple of deal killers where I've not made an offer or I've rescinded an offer. I
So,
just
no
want...
names, but just
No, absolutely
what,
not.
What made you go through that process?
I think, first of all, what I'm learning is that the vetting process to bring somebody on board the cadence must be slow. You have to take your time. Jessica's an anomaly because I knew her and I've worked with her and I knew we already had the synergy.
Well, it took you 5 years, so
right.
hopefully your hiring process isn't for 5 years.
That's true.
You'll be fully staffed in 20.
But I have vetted the situation for everybody else is what I tell them. I'm like, guys, I've done this for 5 years, trust me. But when you see the model, it really makes a lot of sense. But I think for me, I think there's an entitlement, somewhat of an entitlement issue out there. And we work all the time, but we love what we do. And I don't expect everybody to work like us, but I think that if I hear this complacency or we're not returning calls, then that translates into my clients aren't going to get calls returned. And we all get busy, but this is a 24/7 business. We're lucky we don't have to work on the weekends, but if you're going to scale a business and you're going to grow a practice, it's a lot of work. And you are an entrepreneur. This isn't a 9 to 5.
Right.
I have a candidate right now who will probably accept our offer. She's a CPA by background.
Interesting. Okay.
She is a CFO. She's always wanted to be a broker. She wants to do it. She's hungry. She's ready to make calls.
Wow.
And I don't know that
So
she
this
can,
is her first time in real estate.
she's been in real estate.
Okay.
She has a tremendous background in real estate,
Okay.
but she's never been a broker.
Got it.
It's what she wants to do.
Okay.
You take her into another firm, and they may not give her the shot I'm giving her.
Sure.
But she is a hard worker. She wants to do it. Heck yeah, do it with me. Absolutely. You want to take that risk? I love, and her background is amazing.
Is that half the battle, just the will and the desire?
Yes. I mean, for every phone call you make, if you're cold calling, you're going to get 9 hangups and maybe one person say, I might be interested. I think the other thing about the role is if you're giving your brokers the right information and they're calling with value versus a cold call, they're not just cold calling. We're gonna position these brokers in an efficient way so they're not wasting their time and just like throwing darts at the board. And then that goes back to technology and how we're going to do it differently. Because I've been with some of the biggest firms, and they claim to have great technology, and they do, but a lot of people don't know how to implement it.
You have to use it, right?
Yeah, you really do have to use it.
It's great that you have it, but what do you do with it? Yeah.
So this is kind of great because we're starting from scratch. So now we get to sit back and go, what's the best and most efficient way to do this? What is the CRM we're going to pick? How is our accounting going to talk to the CRM? How's the CRM going to talk to our revenue projector? Like there's all of these moving parts. That's all on us.
That's kind of surprising too, that Lee doesn't have kind of that business in a box and say, okay,
nope,
you can customize it,
nope.
but
they want you to do it the way you want to do it. Now we share best practices, and some people are doing it better than others. And some people are old school and they don't want to do those things. So it's really a little bit of everything. What you get from us, though, are people that are grinding and they're in the field. For example, our research, I'm super involved in the research. I dig in, I vet the numbers, I make sure the buildings are vacant.
You always have.
Yeah, that's important because clients expect, investors expect that we know what's happening. There's a lot of brokerage firms that rely on the research people and they don't really dig into the stats. That's super important to be a part of that. So it's kind of cool. We're going to get to do it the way it should be done, I think.
So starting from scratch, you had to come up with a business plan and goal setting. Mm-hmm. So what was the goal setting process like for you?
So interestingly enough, our CEO, who I truly believe is an AI, I just think he's a little like Ron Weaver. There has to be 10 of them. We just don't know.
We just had Ron Weaver in here.
Okay, well.
Ron was great.
I imagine. Did you understand anything he said?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
yes.
Good. You're smarter than I am then, clearly. So love Ron to death. So I think, the CEO, Jeff Rinkoff, who was just voted Globe Street's like one of the best CEOs to work with, he is super involved in the process. And you are holding hands with him through the whole entire 3 or 4 months when you're putting this whole process together. And it's super vetted. It's super intense. Before you go up on that stage, that thing has been edited, 25 times, and everything's being checked. So it's best practices around the country. So I got to ask, well, who are the last offices that were open? So the last 5 years, San Francisco, Boston. I figured I picked those tier markets because I feel like they're more like us. Like I wouldn't go pick the one for LA or New York. My business plan, my model there is a little closer, and so that's what we did. And that was given to me to start me off. And then it's just a matter of knowing the market here and identifying the competitors, who's working there. And you get as detailed as the top producers in those offices because maybe they become recruits later.
Sure.
So,
yes.
But the process is amazing. And Felicia Saunders, who is the young lady that I was speaking to earlier that left JLL first, I'll never forget, we were on our first call with Jeff, our CEO, and we hung up the phone after 2 hours, and she said, he knew my name. Like, yeah. She goes, I don't even know the name of any of the executives at JLL or Cushman. He knew my name. I'm like,
wow.
Yeah, and that's who he is. So he emulates everything that I fell in love with the model about, and all of the partners around the country are just like that. It's really a different feeling. When I would go to the national conferences at the other firms, not knocking them, they're amazing at what they do. You're just another broker there. Here, there's a level of respect that's much higher because you're an owner, and you might own shares in somebody's office, and they know that.
I love that kind of cross-pollination. And yes, no. So you said you're doing things differently here, and from online, it looks like it's different. But so, tell me what a team meeting looks like with Julia.
So we have just gone from, how many brokers did we have? 3 to 7 in the last 2 weeks. So it has changed dramatically. And these other recruits that we're talking to are also joining us as we're making the decision. Bringing Jessica on and the other 2 young men that just joined us happened simultaneously within a week. So the other recruits, we're going to kind of stagger those announcements, but they're already joining us. We're gonna create a tenant rep team that will do national work.
Okay.
And we're very excited about that.
Now, all focused in industrial, or are you getting into different?
Okay. We're doing every asset class. So eventually we will build out a retail team. Funny, some of the other brokers around the country where their markets aren't as busy are calling us and saying, hey, could I transact in your market if I get my license? Because we're not transacting here. I have a team of investment sales guys that are in our Western Pennsylvania office that are going to be here 6 months out of the year and transact with us. Well, I just hired 3 investment sales capital market guys that will share the revenue between their office and our office, and I just added 3 people because our market's so hot.
Right.
So that's happening organically too. But I mean, the business meeting is inclusive. Everybody is involved. Everybody's making decisions. And because we're just starting out, these decisions will help craft the ability to scale the business later. So we might make a mistake, but we're paying attention. Example.
But everybody's a part of the process. So
Everybody's a
feels
part of the
like they
process.
own it.
Yes.
Yeah.
The marketing people are in there. The research people are in there. The new hires are in there. Everybody's in the room. We're talking about it because as we grow the business generationally, they are going to be the leaders later. So what we do and what we hand them matters right now. And I'm intentional about how we're going to do that. I'm super savvy with regard to technology. I've introduced technology to some of the other firms, technology that they weren't using before and adopted. So we're gonna be lean and mean, but I've got to be more efficient than most.
Understood. So do you do one-on-ones? Is it too soon?
What does that mean?
One-on-one meetings? Like individual?
All the time.
Yeah?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, with your team?
Especially when you're mentoring.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what does that look like for you?
I think the responsibility, the biggest thing for me right now, the responsibility of someone saying, I'm going to hitch my wagon to you is overwhelming to me, and it's so personal. One of our recruits is a young man who just relocated from Brooklyn, and he married a Tampa girl. And the weekend that he was getting married, he had spent the week before, he was interviewing with other folks in the marketplace, and we were throwing our big launch party, which was just a huge event. And we had clients from all over the country, all over the world join us. We had about 100 people. And that was the weekend he was getting married. And so I set up a meeting with our CEO that Friday. He came to our launch party that night. He had the rehearsal dinner 2 hours later. So he hadn't even accepted. But of course, after he met our CEO and he saw what we did and he saw how we were doing it differently, he accepted the offer. And she said she wanted him to move to Tampa pretty quickly, quicker than he thought, which was great for me. But he's moving his life to do this with us, and that is overwhelming to me. He's a killer. He is a killer. And his CEO was like, I don't want to let him go, but you've got somebody so good. And his reputation, his references were amazing. So
that's incredible.
That's exciting. Yeah, spending time with him. We've got an intern that's here from FSU. Any chance you get to make somebody better at what they're doing. And by the way, I want to be mentored too. It's not a one-way street.
Sure.
I need to learn from them. So I'm always encouraging them.
Oh, we're always learning, right?
Yeah, to bring me better ideas. And, what do you think? We'll be in a meeting and I'll say, do you have anything to add? What did you think? And they're kind of overwhelmed that I would do that, but they come up with good stuff. So it's good.
It's amazing when you ask those questions and listen. So always learning, quality of a good leader. And you've worked for a couple amazing leaders, you said.
Yes.
So if you could kind of surmise what you believe a good leader is, how would you describe it?
I'm a lot like you with regard to giving back. And I think leadership isn't just about generating revenue. Like I said earlier, I love making money, but I always made it a point from the very onset of my career to give back. And that meant, I was president of NAIOP like you, president of REIC, president of Crew Tampa Bay. I've sat on a lot of, advisory boards and nonprofits, and I've done a lot of political campaigning in the background. I've
maybe more to come.
Possibly. And I love being in the background, but I think we can direct and change the landscape of Tampa by being involved in lots of ways. But giving back to the community is huge. And as a leader, that's something that I will share with my team to give back. In fact, we'll identify the different associations and who is going to tackle which ones, how they're going to get involved. Don't just go to the meetings, but let's get on a board, let's get on a committee. We're going to create one of the best recruiting tools and do one of the best intern programs in the state of Florida. So everybody in the room will attack one university that they have a following or they went there, and they will, be on an advisory board or give back and make sure that we're recruiting from those schools. So
that's a great goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
All right, let's do a hard pivot a little bit. We're going to dig into your bread and butter.
Okay.
So industrial real estate.
Yes.
So it's been kind of the darling for for years now. Are we hitting a tipping point? Are things starting to slow down? What are you seeing?
I think there's a sentiment that possibly, I mean, if you speak to leaders around the country and other markets, it's definitely slowed down. The Inland Empire has seen probably one of the biggest slowdowns, which that was hot forever. We were the net recipient of some massive net migration after COVID. There's no question. Is it tapering off? I'm hearing, and one thing that I do is I always talk to my residential brokers because I feel like they have their hand on the pulse of what's going on with net migration and moving, and they're seeing a little bit of a slowdown. You know, now there's inventory on the market. We didn't have that before. Still healthier than most other markets. Florida is still the darling nationally. Tampa still feels really good, and we're somewhat landlocked. So there's a scarcity of land. So we're not just like overdeveloping like some markets are. So there's an equilibrium. I think we're seeing vacancy rates tip up a little bit because there's new products coming online, but we haven't had new products online because we haven't built speculative product in Tampa proper. Move over a little bit east to Plant City and Lakeland. There's a little bit of overdevelopment there. Their vacancy rates have increased a little bit more than Tampa proper, but that's part of our region. So we watch that. We always watch those stats over there. The thing about Lakeland and Plant City is that they have more land, so they're building bigger footprints. Tampa's still building smaller footprints. The biggest building right now in Tampa is 174,000 square feet. If you go to Lakeland, there's 500,000 square feet. There's 1 million square feet here and there. So there's some space to be absorbed in that market. But things are taking a little bit longer, for sure. Deals are taking longer. Big deals are taking a lot longer. And it's geopolitical. It's the economy. It's inflation.
That's interesting. We talk about geopolitical, and obviously, I mean, there's tons of issues going on. I'm not really hearing the conversation from clients of let's see what happens until the election. It's a conversation piece, but at least in my conversations, it's not putting anything on hold.
I think many clients won't say it, but there's this feeling. We had our quarterly luncheon yesterday, and all of the Tampa brokers that have landlord agency work, industrial brokers, we meet every quarter, we share stats, we talk about sentiment. We want investors and clients to know that we're talking in this market. It's very unusual if you compare us to other markets around the country. Tampa's one of the only markets that we do that in. And the sentiment was strong. Everybody's very busy, but everybody did say the deals are taking longer and people are hesitating a little bit more. And I think the Amazon effect has slowed down because post-COVID, everybody had to order online. But you see a lot of the retailers positioning themselves to not allow Amazon to take the market over. So you're seeing the building supply companies like Home Depot, Ace Hardware, Lowe's take big distribution positions. I'm working with a Fortune 50 retailer who will take 2 1.2 million square foot positions in Florida.
Okay.
Been working on that deal for about 2 years. And that's taken longer because the market has shifted. When we originally went to the market to find them space, none of the landlords would sell their land, and they need about 180 acres. That's a big chunk of land to
Huge,
sell.
yeah.
And if you've got 500 acres, that's almost half of your site. And we got pretty frustrated, and they really wanted to self-perform. And I said, "Look, guys, just slow down," because they were like, "We're just going to forget Florida. We'll just 3PL." I said, "Just pump the brakes. Let's slow down a little bit and wait." I think the tides are turning. Within 6 months, those same developers that wouldn't sell would sell. It's a great brand. It's a great name.
And was that just because the market has slowed down a little bit, and there was a disconnect in the ask and bid ask?
They really originally wanted to be core, and it was hard to find them 180 acres core Orlando or Tampa. They were looking Orlando, Tampa, Jacksonville. Okay. And so I got them geographically
Which is kind of,
to stretch.
fascinating. Why wouldn't you want it? Because the movement, not only is it hard to find land, right? But if you're right in between, you can serve both markets.
Right.
Do you need to be in Orlando? Do you need to be in Tampa or be in Lakeland and Plant City?
I'm under NDA, so I can't tell you who it is, but they needed both positions for certain reasons. But
Okay.
what I was able to do was stretch the geography just a little and still maintain their parameter of labor, which was the most important thing to them. So they wanted to be core, to be labor, but we stretched them out a little bit. So they'll be a little outside of the core of Orlando and a little bit outside of the core of Tampa. But, that's a methodical decision-making process. It takes a little bit longer. But anybody that's taking down big space should take their time figuring it out, especially if there's
absolutely.
competitive
It's a big
space.
decision
Yeah.
So speaking of, we're talking about BuildASuits. What about spec? I mean, is that kind of behind us now at this point? I mean, there was a ton of spec that came on the market, and it seems like everything that's being built right now is build-to-suit. Is that fair to say?
There's a little bit more build. Like Target was a build-to-suit, and if it's
Coca-Cola,
over,
right,
if it's over $1 million, they want to build a suit because there's so many things that happen inside the warehouse that is not speculative. You can't, for example, my Fortune 50, there were quite a few million square foot spaces to look at, and the buildings just couldn't accommodate the mezzanine space that they needed. They needed 60-foot clear height in some parts. They needed the floors to be thicker. So it's hard to just put that in a cookie cutter building, but we've absorbed some of the space that was out there, which is good. We've had some good absorption this quarter, especially in Lakeland, Plant City. But yeah, I mean, it's build-to-suit, spec spaces. There's plenty more spec space in Plant City and Lakeland than there is in Tampa. Right now, between proposed, under construction, and delivered, there's about 21 buildings that can be built speculatively, and only one out of the 21 is a cross-dock building in Tampa proper.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So the cross-docks are really Plant City, Lakeland. That's where they're popping up over there.
Okay.
So we'll see what happens.
So you mentioned Amazon. I know Amazon kind of threw everybody into a loop when, last year they were saying, they're out of the market and we're starting to sublease space and probably overbuilt because all of a sudden people started to go back and actually physically buy in person in places. But they're back out again into the market. I mean, are they actively looking here? Are they a factor? You're talking about, the Home Depots of the world trying to get distribution space to compete against the Amazons. But
right. So the retailers want to chase population growth. So as long as the population is growing, the retailers are chasing that. So for Amazon, they did make those announcements and they did scale back in some parts of the country, but they really didn't scale back in Tampa.
Okay.
They kind of said they were. They held off on actually occupying some of the space. They did give away a few, but for the most part, they were still pretty aggressive in Florida. And now they're back. So it's interesting. But I said, they're chasing population growth, and I still think our numbers are pretty healthy.
Okay, good. What are some of the current trends you're seeing in industrial space in Tampa Bay? And then maybe also, I mean, how does Tampa Bay differ from the other markets throughout the state?
So I think for us, a trend that we're seeing more because of Amazon is that a lot of our warehouses are now air conditioned, which translates to a little bit more capital outlay for the landlord. Forever we would just lease space in the warehouse portion. The office was air conditioned, but the warehouse portion was
You
not.
stick a fan in there and there you go.
Yeah, big exhaust fans or the BA, the big fans. Those are very popular as well. You have to have so many air exchanges per hour when you occupy a space, but now everybody, for employee retention, that's super important. And Amazon's got these beautifully air-conditioned warehouses, state-of-the-art, so these other big spaces have to have air conditioning. That's pretty expensive, so that's a big trend. I think, it's what we always knew it to be. It's stock high, it's a box. Industrial's not.
So not much changing outside of air conditioning.
Right. I mean, it is the belle of the ball from an asset class perspective. I still think that's where investors are chasing. We field 5 to 7 calls a week, investors from all over the world. What's happening in Tampa? Where can I buy land? Oh, it's a family fund. It's, we're an institutional lender, blah, blah. There's just every week somebody new coming into the market.
But it does say, deal volume is down, isn't it?
A little bit.
Okay.
A little bit, yeah.
So what interest rates are probably certainly a factor.
Absolutely.
What about insurance? What about financing? How are you seeing that impact the market?
So speculative financing is a little tighter. I mean, this is your neck of the woods now, but
not happening.
Lending is tough. Buying land speculatively, tough, right? So people who have cash are king. I mean, they can make things happen right now and probably get a good basis and acquire if they've got patient money. Interest rates are definitely hurting in a lot of ways. But I think what's happening right now is that tenants who are in space and are 50 to 100% below market are looking at renewals. They might be paying $6 a foot, for example. I have a tenant right now that's paying $6.50 a foot. If I renewed them in 2 years, they're going to be at $12 a foot. That's a big hit to your bottom line. And unless you're really well capitalized, that can put you out of business. So the smaller companies are probably seeing the toughest pull on their purse string, right? So, and that's now happening. anybody that renewed 5 years ago, they're waking up to quite a bit of a nightmare if they weren't prepared for it. And that's what's taking so long too. It's an education process. You really have to sit down with them and say, this is what's happening in the marketplace. We encourage you to work with a broker. You really need to know what's happening. I think if your landlord's flexible, your landlord might work with you. But a lot of the institutional landlords have pro formas to hit. And when they're buying assets and they just bought the asset, they're buying the assets with the anticipation that rent
We're going to
growth
increase
is,
your rent.
yes. So it's a double-edged sword. It's tough to be a landlord broker right now.
Let's say, so even though you look at the market, vacancy rates are a little higher than they have been, probably back to more of a historical norm, if that's fair to say.
Still better. So
Okay,
we're still
okay.
low single digits, approaching over 5% in Lakeland and Plant City, and the stats are literally coming in as we speak. So I'll be interested to see how many basis points we move.
You got the best data, right?
Yes, we will have the best data. We do have the best data.
So, but it does feel like even though we've got an increase in vacancy, that rents are continuing to increase. Is that fair?
They are. I mean, the more product you put on the market, there might be some dip because people are going to be more competitive. And that's the whole thing. If you can create some kind of equilibrium in delivery but we've traditionally had a healthy absorption in Tampa, so I still don't see us overbuilding in Tampa proper. Lakeland, on the other hand, is an emerging market, so it's hard to point to this is the trend because now all of a sudden they do have higher absorption because they didn't have product like this before. So we get those calls all the time. Show me if someone's going to build spec. Show me the data. Well, we haven't built anything spec in Tampa in a long time, so now it's like now we're leasing it up. Now we can point to some stuff, but it's not the velocity that they want. But it's because we haven't built it. So it's getting better for us. But investors want data. You know that.
Sure.
No one's going to throw money at something if I can't prove it, the thesis
Absolutely.
for them.
So how does, Tampa overall, the high picture, compare to Jacksonville, Orlando, Miami-Dade? So tell us a little bit about that.
So Miami, if you look at rental rates, Tampa and Orlando are very similar. There's a little disparity if you move into the center of the state and you go to Lakeland by $2 to $3 a foot. Miami is still hot, and you talk about scarcity of land. There's literally no land. They're redeveloping. We're starting to see that in Tampa too.
I'm kind of surprised that, and I don't want to interrupt you. Maybe we'll come back to that, but maybe talk about Jacksonville first before we get into redevelopment.
So Jacksonville's always been a market that trailed us from a rental rate standpoint, but the velocity there because of the port, it's very healthy. And they've also had a lot of net migration too, so still a very healthy market, still single digits in vacancy. And then going back to my comment, we're seeing redevelopment now in Tampa. And if you remember the project Corporex Park, there was a 4-story office building called Lakeview Center.
Yep.
It had a 6-to-1 parking ratio. That's been knocked down, and now they're building industrial there.
Okay.
So that is interesting to see that happen, to knock down a 4-story building and turn it into industrial. That's the best and highest use right now. Suburban office isn't doing well. But Tampa, generally, as far as an office market, we're doing a lot better than other markets.
That's that's fascinating because I was very much expecting we were going to have a lot more redevelopment this cycle, and I felt like we kind of missed it. But gosh, when you look at especially kind of East Tampa, maybe even in the Pasco, some of that office space that is just not utilized. Maybe industrial is. I was thinking, multifamily, and not an adaptive reuse, but just tear it down. Build multifamily, but industrial probably makes sense. So what's your thoughts on Net Park? Because that
just traded.
That just traded.
And I'd be interested. I haven't done my homework on who the buyer is, but that's a significant piece of land, well located. We'll see what happens there. But that'll be one of the biggest, largest contiguous pieces of land. There's still term left on those leases, so it'll be interesting to see how they roll that out and what it turns into.
So the rent tax recently was dropped, which was to me a little bit surprising. To me it was always going to be incremental, and they dropped it. I think it's gone altogether. Does that help from a competitive standpoint to some other markets?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's double dipping. They were already paying sales tax, right? They were paying real estate taxes, and so that tax is a benefit to the tenant. And anything from an operation standpoint, the operating expenses dropping that totally helps the tenant. Insurance, we talked about that earlier. Insurance is a killer right now.
Yeah.
It is. It's really hard to scale that for somebody who doesn't get it. Even buying and closing on a building right now to get insurance is really tough. on the residential side as well. I hear that's killing deals. So Florida, I think California is in a lot worse shape than we are, but we've had a lot of insurers leave the state. So it's not as competitive as it used to be.
It's I had Doug Bishop on with Marsh McLennan, and I shared with him that this is the only time in my career, and we have a lot of wealthy and affluent clients, but we've actually had people that when they have gotten their renewal notice from their insurance company, just pay off their mortgage. They're like, it's not worth it.
Yep.
I will self-insure,
Right.
don't care. I'm just paying off my mortgage, and I don't recommend it. But, they're in a position that they can do it. That has never happened. And it's just premiums. That's a rarity. But in many cases, from, an acquisition or even development standpoint, that can be a deal killer. And, of course, we mentioned interest rates, too. So we're talking about a lot of big box industrial, but kind of last mile, like infill. What are your thoughts on zoning and making some of maybe some larger big box retail that's underutilized, kind of a hybrid retail / industrial? Do you think that's going to happen? Are you aware of any conversations?
Again, I think Net Park is potentially going to be that. I think if I had to guess, that's what I would do with the site. But I don't know what their basis is. I was reading it yesterday. I really need to study that. Just been a little bit busy today, but
I understand.
I'll read it over the weekend. But I think that's a perfect example. If it were me, I would probably develop that to be industrial. There's the Progressive Insurance site on Falkenberg and I-75, and that will probably, they're trying to pencil that out to do more service center type industrial. But that's going to probably be another one that gets repurposed. And I think you're going to see more and more of that, especially because the largest piece of industrial land on the east side, 25 acres, maybe you can get 50 acres, but it's still very minimal. So I think you're going to see more of that. The numbers just have to work. You know how that is. You've got to be able to underwrite it and back into a rent. It's
For sure.
super simple.
What about infrastructure? So we have the port here, and I know we don't have a lot of land around the port and airport, but can you chat a little bit about how infrastructure is impacting some of the development projects in the area?
So I think the port's making a lot of good investments. We're never going to be a deep water port because our what's our depth? Our channel depth is low, and then we've got the Skyway Bridge to contend with. So we'll never get the big Panamax ships coming in, but I think the port is doing better. Really, phosphate is our number one commodity that comes in and out of the port, so it doesn't really bode well for industrial, but more people are getting containers out of the port. So I hear it more and more and more people want to be close to the port. And the airport is interesting too because we only have just north of the airport, Hillsborough Avenue, to about Waters, maybe even stretching the line ball, but that's so landlocked too. So you're seeing a lot of redevelopment in Drew Park. I think Drew Park is going to be a play. I think you're gonna see some of those older buildings get knocked down and try to capture some sites there too. There's literally no land in the airport market. So
do you see any? And I forget where it was, and I know there's been a handful of them developed now, but Seattle was the first one that I remember, with multi-story industrial. Do you see that in the future in Tampa Bay anytime soon?
Not yet. We're not there yet. But Miami's seeing it. New York is seeing it. Brooklyn's seeing it. Seattle's seeing it. But we're not there yet.
Okay. Overall, just outlook in the market. How do you feel? Where if you had your crystal ball, 5 to 10 years, what does the Tampa Bay market look like?
So we will be the number one brokerage office in Tampa Bay. Oh, you weren't talking about that? Oh, sorry. That is a goal. We'll be one of the top 3. I can tell you that much. I think this is a healthy market. I'd rather be sitting here than anywhere else in the country, I can tell you, or anywhere else in the state. I just think Tampa has such a diversity. I mentioned earlier that I wanted to grow this office to be culturally diverse and ethnically diverse. I think that's what makes us really special here. And if you look at us compared to the other markets, we really have a melting pot, and it's what makes it so attractive. I think everybody just discovered Tampa. Everybody's talking about us. I've been here 30 years. I've never seen it so exciting. And I live on Water Street. Don't ask me about the elevators right now, but that's another story. But Water Street,
you may not be living on Water Street.
Maybe not. Water Street is where it's at. The energy, the restaurants, the nightlife, the addition, everybody's down there. It's really exciting. And our downtown has vibrancy now. Even the office building is getting record rents.
It's amazing. $70 a square foot.
75. Ask Mercedes Angel. Ask our friend Mercedes. She just, yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And when you can compare and contrast, so I mean, West Shore, we're like high 30s, maybe at the top, maybe some low 40s.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't break $29 in downtown Tampa forever. We didn't have anything new, but Armature Works is hot. You know, it's and that's what I love. Look at Seminole Heights. I mean, Seminole Heights is great. It's kind of like the new Hyde Park.
It is.
It's getting there. I mean, it's got some work to do, but it is. Homes are selling for $1.5 million, $2 million. Like Seminole Heights, seriously. I lived there for 3 years. I loved it.
You
were at my
Halloween
Halloween party.
Yes, yeah.
I do regret selling, but I developed a 1 acre piece right down the street on the river.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yes, I did. I built 3 homes with Neo Homes. We just sold all 3 of them for like $1.5 million each.
Congratulations.
Yeah. That was my little dip into development on my own. Right after the pandemic, I found this little house, and it was
sure
right
there
on the
will be
river.
more.
Oh yeah, I know. That's a good thing. We can actually, as brokers of this firm, we can actually invest in our deals now, which was one of the other attractive things I thought would make it really,
And so typically you are restricted, right? Isn't that
when you work for a publicly traded company, you cannot do that. No. People get away with it, sure they do, but yeah, we are encouraged to do it. In fact, if one day when we buy a building, which we can go buy a building and own it ourselves, they actually encourage that. Most of the offices own their own buildings. We can internally raise that capital if we want to.
Well, we need financing for it.
I was going to say, but if I do go get financing, I'm going to you and only you, of course.
Anything else?
We do need to talk about that, by the way. Seriously.
Seriously.
Yeah,
I'd love to have the conversation.
Okay.
Anything else you want people to know about?
It's an exciting time to be in this market. I love this town. You and I have grown up in this town, and we've done a lot of stuff together and given back to the community. And all I can say is Tampa can only be better when you give back. I hate to see people just show up here and think, oh, I'm just going to make money. I've been around a lot of those people. And what I admire about you is that you've always given back, and that you put your time back into the community, and that's really important. I don't want that to go away. But this is an exciting time to be in Tampa, and I'm excited that I've got this opportunity, that I get to do this with people that I really care about and that are just as passionate as I am. So we're just going to light it up. We're going to do it different. We're going to have a fun time doing it. So
well, I love it. I love the excitement and the energy that you're bringing right now. And so if people want to join the team, or if they're looking for a new broker, where can people find you?
LinkedIn, Facebook, Julia Silva. Our website's Lean Associates Tampa Bay. We're all over the place. Most people know how to get a hold of me. But we're looking to scale, but we're looking to scale with the right people. That's the most important thing.
Doing it smart.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, good luck with that. Julia Silva, thank you for coming on Money Market.
Thank you. And I really am still mad about this.
You look great.
But it's okay. Yeah, thanks.
So our listeners out there, if you've got a question or a future show idea, would like to be a sponsor, you can send us a message at moneymarket@bankoftampa.com, or find us on LinkedIn, X, Facebook, or on Instagram at Bank of Tampa, and of course online at bankoftampa.com. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for subscribing, and we'll see you around in the Money Market.